All right, folks, greetings and welcome to the CODEC Show, episode number 1 of 2019, spring semester 2019. Let's get a hand for the CODEC Show, folks. I forgot to tell you guys in the audience that we're live, so you got to go audience style and clap for everything, all right? No, you don't have to clap for everything. My name is Peter James, and I'm doing it the old-fashioned way today. Instead of paper, I got my phone because I left my paper in my office. I am your host for the CODEC Show. I'm so excited to be here. We are located on the beautiful campus of the College of DuPage, Glen Ellen, Illinois, about 25, 30 minutes outside of Chicago. Beautiful campus. It's a little snowy today. So again, those of you who are here, kudos to you for being here on a snowy day. So at the College of DuPage Entrepreneurship Club, better known as CODEC, our goal is to expose students and local community members to entrepreneurs and small business owners. And by them sharing their story, we'll show how entrepreneurship is definitely an option and when your education is complete. Bottom line is, I want to show everyone that you don't have to work for somebody the rest of your life. There are other ways to be able to make money and make a career out of it as well. So again, as I mentioned, I'm Peter James. I'm a professor here on campus, and I'm actually representing the Business Management and Marketing Department. So that's my shout out to my discipline, of course, on campus. And again, bringing you watching here on YouTube, I'm bringing entrepreneurs in our local community to you guys as well. So this club has definitely evolved. This is our first time in this new room at SSC 2201. So I'm excited about it. We got windows. We are actually moving on up, like the Jeffersons. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Okay, never mind. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So, listen, we have a distinguished guest, and in every session we have a great guest. I'm so excited. So, Momodou? Momodou, please say your last name for me.
Njai.
Momodou Njai. I am so excited for you to be here, man. You had me worried for a minute, but I'm glad you made it here despite the snow because it is a little icy out there and everything like that. So, thank you so much for coming here on the College of DuPage campus and sharing your story with us. So, first and foremost, who are you, and what do you do?
So, Momodou Njai, and I am the founder of DIM Events, which is an experiential marketing company, and then also the co-founder of Mo Management, which is a business/brand development management style company. So, a lot of what we do is create experiential events, and then we also work with creatives to get their story out there and brand themselves. So the way that we created both of those companies is to intermingle with one another to get clients on one side and then utilize our clients with Mo Management and have them work with DIM Events as well.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. So this is not a product-based organization by any means. It's strictly service-based.
Strictly service.
How hard is that breaking into that type of business from your experience? What was the road like, and how did you figure out that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story.
Sure, please.
I started off in the nightlife realm.
Wait. Like Batman?
No.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
like the club industry, basically.
Okay.
So kind of learned it from college, right? I went to DePaul University, originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what we did is we noticed, well, now I can analyze it a little better, but at the time we noticed that there were no parties or events for people under the age of 21 because Chicago is a 21 and up market. So what we did was we'd find people, rent their houses, and then throw these parties. So I knew it was a hit from our first Halloween party that we branded, had our own internal team of 5 people who promoted the event. And then we also had one of my good friends who's a co-founder of Mo Management. He was our DJ. Then we started to also break artists through that.
Sure.
So within that first 2 hours before the cops shut us down, we had already made $1,500 for that event. And for a 18-year-old freshman, I was like, oh, this was easy. This is great. Let's do this some more. But after that, slowly transitioned into doing it more on a legitimate scale.
Sure.
Working with this company called Rocket Ranch Production.
Yeah.
And learning a lot about that industry and building up that network, right? So I would say, to go back to your question with the service industry, it's really based off of, for me, who you know, right?
Ooh.
If I didn't have that network of people who saw what I've already done, then I wouldn't be able to tap into it as easy.
So it's funny you said that. I tell so many people that in all my career, I think I've achieved almost every single job in my career based on who I knew. For that matter, as a business owner, I've achieved every gig I knew from a relationship or referral or something like that. So even you've kind of confirmed that a little bit as you got your start and as you've evolved to where you are now, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you got started that way. You started out with the Halloween party. It sounded like a great party, by the way.
Great party.
Okay, awesome. So how did that evolve into more parties, more themes?
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit.
So was throwing parties. Then I joined my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha.
It's a good fraternity.
Great fraternity.
It
I
is,
heard
indeed.
you're
Yeah.
a member, so we'll talk about that after. but yeah, so joined my fraternity, and my thing was we are going to have the best parties ever.
Right.
So I accomplished that, and we definitely threw the best parties ever.
Sure.
Marketed guerrilla style marketing, just out in the street, handing stuff out, and really like building up our brand to be known as the people who throw the best parties.
So did you feel comfortable doing that? You know, I like you use an entrepreneurship word, guerrilla, or actually a marketing word, guerrilla marketing. You know, I love that type of stuff. What was that like? You know, for our audience members here, handing out flyers. Did you feel uncomfortable with that at all?
No, I've always been like a people's person, so like it's just striking up conversations,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And I think the key is, and this ties back to being an entrepreneur, right? Getting that first no, and after you get past it,
Yeah.
because I think that's the key, right? A lot of people don't want to get that answer no, and once you get past that first no, it's easy, because then you're used to getting no's, but for every like 10 no's you get, you might get one yes, right? And that one yes is successful, right? So now you take how you got that yes, and then you shift it to how you're reaching out to people.
Guys, this will help your dating life too. No first time. After that, you're good. So keep asking, for that matter as well. So that's kind of cool. You jumped right in it as well, and then you have. I heard about a management company, but then the events company. Talk about how both of those materialize. I know you talked a little bit about it, but give us some of the nitty gritty and tell us some of the hard challenges as well along the way.
Definitely. So after I think I was like 21 after I had my first year out of college,
Sure.
I noticed that like lesser and lesser of the friends that I had were going out. So I was like, this is kind of getting hard. Like it's not as easy as it used to be to bring all these people out. So I had a fun trip. I went to Miami, and I looked at the art scene out there, and I saw that they were doing a lot of art shows. So I was like,
Brickell area.
yeah, Brickell.
Yeah.
Yep. So I
just heard about it.
Oh, you haven't been?
I've been. I'm just
Okay,
messing.
I was about to say. But so yeah, learned a little bit about like what they were doing with their art scene, and really took that idea and brought it to Chicago. Now the first art event that I did was in Wicker Park, which is a very artistic neighborhood, and that didn't go so well, right? I literally took my tax refund check and utilized all that money to invest into that event, and I lost $1,000. But people were like, oh, we had a great time, we enjoyed ourselves, like you should definitely do this again. And what I learned was, like my brand was known for throwing parties, right? So when I threw up on the flyer that, oh, this is an event from 7 to 10, people are like, this doesn't make sense. You usually don't do this. So I had to take that adjustment period, learned a lot about that event, which I called A Sounds, which was based off of showcasing hip hop and showing how it literally kind of took different elements of like art, fashion, and culture and food, and showcased that through a lived experience, right? So once I got some success from that, I shifted that to a summer party, which was called A Sounds, right? So A Sounds was the same thing, but what we did is we went on Chicago's different rooftops, because I still had that access from the nightlife industry, and we created this event, but it was just like a hybrid version, like a day party. So that way I infused like what I knew best and then what I was trying to do. And luckily I got some interest from this lady who was a brand rep at Milagro Tequila. She was like, I love this concept. She was like, I want to sponsor it. And there were some difficulties with like picking out dates, finding venues with her. So we ended up utilizing one of our resources of someone we knew at a spot. And then she made it work where we did the open bar for like the first 2 hours. We had over 400 people at that event.
Wow.
So that's when I knew like this experiential stuff is way better than just a nightlife party, right? People enjoy that so much more. So that's when I made that shift.
Sure.
So that's when like the event planning side started to come into it, because I noticed I was tapping into all of these different creatives and saying like, hey, come be a part of this event. But then they were also getting their products out there as well. So
very cool, very, very cool. This is exciting. Actually, I'm just excited listening to him as well. Hey folks, I don't want to ask all the questions. I told you guys here in the studio audience, you got to come up with some questions. This is a fascinating story that many of you could start dabbling into on a regular basis. So what are some of your questions for Momodou here as he reflects on his past and how he got to where he is right now? Because we're getting ready to talk about kind of where you are right now a little bit. Yes, sir, over there.
Yeah, I got a question. I know this may be about money, but did you have to put in some money that you weren't gonna be guaranteed to earn?
yeah, so that first event was like a lot of the money that I had, and that was like I lost all of that. But then the next ones taught me like, all right, let's utilize this relationship and then find ways where I don't have to put any money up to rent venues out, right? Yeah. So those ones were a lot easier because I wasn't putting up any money, but you have to hit like a bar guarantee, which might be like $1,000 or $1,500, and then whatever you make on top of that is what you'll get from that. So.
And you're getting that from sponsors or people who are paying in, people who are
so
attendees?
The way that it works with a lot of bars and clubs is you'll get a percentage after like whatever people spend at the bar. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So.
Yes, sir.
What were some of your biggest challenges in getting to where you are now?
So I think there's been a lot, right? Being an entrepreneur, there's highs and lows. So it's really like taking those lows when it's like business is slow or like I don't know that many people who are utilizing my services, and one, putting yourself out there, right? So going to events by yourself, right? Because a lot of us just like say, oh, I have a friend, like let's go to this event. But like making yourself uncomfortable and going and meeting these people. And a lot of the times when I did that, I met like a ton of people that led to a lot of bookings and just like reoccurring business for myself.
Yeah.
You mentioned that along with like specializing in nightlife within the parties, you also said that the consumers are also looking for experiential stuff. Can you elaborate by what you mean?
Yeah, so experiential can be like as a wide variety of different things, right? So one event that after we did the A Sounds event, we did this event called It's All Good, which was a dinner series, right? So we took a chef that was in the Chicago market and he wanted to brand himself like by himself, right? Just aside from that. And what we did was we were like, hey, he really wants to grow his following. He wants to interact with the consumer and tell his story. So we literally built out that full event so he could do that, right? So from the moment you come in there, you see him in the kitchen cooking, right? So you get to see behind the scenes process. Usually at the restaurant, you can't see that, right? So you get to see that aspect, but then as you go course by course, he's telling his story as he talks about the different courses for the event, right? So now people are seeing the behind the scenes process, experiencing what he's done and what is the background behind the food as well. And then also at the end of the day, you're like at the kitchen table, taking videos, taking boomerangs on Instagram, and now you're tagging Chef Prep, who was his name, and now you're giving exposure to not only what you see, but also to your other followers as well. So like I would say experiential events can be, I would go like taste, touch, you know, sight, hearing, all of those different things. So I would even say a concert is an experiential event. So.
But they're not always good. They don't always go that smoothly. You just have to kind of feel your way through them to a certain extent.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And what are like some goals that you set for yourself that you accomplished, and what are some goals that you're still yet to accomplish?
So one goal that I set for myself was getting to a certain amount of clients and making sure that I had, because that's the thing with being an entrepreneur, right? You're not getting a paycheck, right? So you have to assure yourself that you're going to hit these numbers based off of your living, right? So one thing, I'll go back to this too, but I think mentorship is very important, because when I first was out here trying to like gain clients and have that service idea that I was going for, I needed to know like, how can I have these clients stay longer rather than short term, right? So I think one thing is that when you're working with clients, you need to make sure that you understand what they're looking to accomplish, and then based off of what they're looking to accomplish, how do you naturally fit into that, right? Mm-hmm. So that way when they look at the budget at the end of the year and they're like, why are we paying him all of this money? Where it's like, no, we need him to get to what our goals are. So once you align with those goals, that helps for you to kind of keep that income coming in. What was the other question? I missed.
What is like an example of a goal that you still have yet to accomplish?
So yet to accomplish. So I think I'm trying to tell my story more, and really utilizing that as like ways to get into different doors. Yeah. But yeah.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Good question. The entrepreneurship thing, you said you started it in college. Did you think you wanted to do this when you were younger? Did your upbringing expose you to this?
No.
From your perspective, what was the point where you said, yeah, I want to do this? Was it any part of your childhood?
No, it wasn't any part of my childhood. High school, I thought I was going to be a doctor, and I remember like yesterday, Brown University had this program where you get accepted into the college, and then you get accepted into the medical school at the same time. So I was like, I'm going to be a doctor, and that's what I'm going to do. And my uncle knew some people on the board, and like got to like my first interview, and I was like, oh, he was like, you're in here, you'll be fine. I got denied, so that dream didn't happen. So I still wanted to be a doctor. Took my first like psychology class and did terrible in it, and I was like, maybe this is not the route that I want to go. And then later, I was like, oh, I'll do economics, and that's what I graduated from DePaul with. I was like, oh, I'll be an investment banker, and that kind of didn't work. Sure. And then I just naturally transitioned into like doing the nightlife realm and like growing from there. Yeah. But
the nightlife stuff gets a bad connotation sometimes.
It does.
But it sounds like you've been able to spin it pretty good into a positive and successful enterprise. How do you, any reason why it's that way? Because again, you hear about the nightlife and the making backroom deals and stuff like that. It sounds like yours is on the up and up, and everything you're trying to do is positive.
Yeah, so I will say the nightlife realm does get a bad connotation, but like if you really look at a lot of these successful people, and that's what I also do, is I like study all of these people, right? Because then I know what different directions they did. So when I see something coming at me that might be negative, I know how to flip it to be positive, right? Nice. So like you'll have, you guys might not know him, but like there's Kanye's first manager was John Monopoly, and he started off in the nightlife realm. So like Mike Dean started off in the nightlife realm. Don C started off in the nightlife realm. So a lot of those people learned in that nightlife realm, and you learn a lot of like the grit and grind behind it, right? And club owners are they're not the best, but you learn like to be tough, right? You learn how to like bring people out to the club, market all of that stuff, and you really get to build your own brand because it's all about you, right? These people are coming to experience a good time with you. So like, if you take a step back and you really look at what you've accomplished, then you can dissect it and say, oh, I can take all of these things and go into this field, or I can go into this field. So
very cool. Yeah. Very, very unique. Very unique. Yes, sir.
Say that one more
so
time.
One more time, say that. What do you?
Oh, that's.
What do you do?
Okay, yeah, so.
And I'm sure that happens.
No, that happens, yeah. But I take all of like the things that they didn't like about it, or like aspects of it, and that's kind of what you bring to the table if you're working with a team, where it's like, hey, these are the things that we think we could use some improvement, and then you take those elements and then you put them into the next event. But I don't try to take it personally, and that's the key, right? Especially for me, like that A Sounds event, when some people didn't like it, I put my heart and soul into it. This was my first one, and that was literally my idea and concept, right? But if I took it personally, then it would just kind of neglect how the event has grown into where it is now. So I think the key is just knowing that it's not coming, even if some things come out a little negative, just knowing that you can utilize some good aspects of it and like create something better from it as well. So, and I always just think there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the big part of that is not taking it personal. I think a lot of times when individuals start business or some small business or a virtual business, they want to take no very personally. No is like an attack on them, and you got to understand that's just part of the business overall. So, listen, just a couple more questions, definitely. Oh, another question from this guy over here? Okay, go ahead. One more.
What's an example of like a mistake that you made that you're able to essentially use for good later on?
It's a good question.
It's a tough one too, man.
A mistake.
And while you're even thinking about that mistake, and this might even help you trigger some thoughts on that, I want to ask you about the people who you surround yourself with, friends, circle. How do they help you how have they helped you along the way, positively or negatively?
Gotcha. Okay. So I'll go mistake. I think there was the guy that I work very closely with now. I hesitated on working with him because he was in the wine industry and I knew nothing about wine. So I waited a little bit too long, but it actually worked out well because I ended up learning more from the It's All Good like cooking series that we talked about, and took a lot of those concepts and idea of creating an experiential event and creating that into an event that we do for him now called Samples and Samples, which is a music and wine pairing event. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Good stuff.
And then people around me.
Your circle, mentors,
Yeah.
whoever. Yeah. Talk about that.
So I think one thing, and there's this entrepreneur that I watched, his name's Gary Vee. If you guys want to be an entrepreneur, you should watch him. He's very motivating. But he, like, listening to other people's stories, you always know that some friends are gonna drop off, right? That's just naturally gonna happen, right? So like even with Dim Events, right? Dim Events I'm the sole founder now, but I started it with somebody else, right? And he wanted to go more so into the nightlife realm. I saw the shift in the market, so I said, no, I want to go into experiential marketing realm. So like that was a hard thing for us to split ways, because now you're used to talking with someone about these ideas and your goals and things of that nature. Now it's just on you to do that, right? So I think that was a shift that was for the good now. Now I see it, but I think that's one of those hard things with people around you, and that was someone that I started my whole career with, right? Mentorship, I think, is super important. I think it's good to have, I look at it as you can have a mentor that doesn't have the experience that you have, but understands a different market than you, right? And then you can have a mentor that's super successful and understands like how to get to that next level, right? So I try to surround myself with a lot of people who are on the up and up and not kind of steady where they are right now as well. But at the same time, your target market is so different for each event that we do that it's good for you to have a diversity of friends either way, right? So you can learn something from each one of them, right? Because you might have, like, I can't just have all friends that are entrepreneurs, because then they won't understand what is kind of going on in the market for a consumer, right? I need to understand the consumer at the same time.
Interesting. That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. So we got two more questions. I was going to wrap it up, but we have two questions. So let's start here in the back. Actually, we got three questions. So let's start up front and work our way back. But these are the last three, folks, because I got a final question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell us which methods or technique you use to market yourself or your business?
Methods.
Yeah, so I think really for me there's a few, right? I think with the nightlife, I was just putting myself out there, right? So I constantly was just out and about on the scene, right? So like if I knew these people who work with these liquor brands or work with Nike or things of that nature were at these events, I made sure I was at all of them. So I'm in their face, talking to them, telling them what I want to do and telling them what I'm actually doing right now. So networking on that point. I think social media is big as well, right? I have someone who I work with through who helps me with social media. But I will say, like, my first event that I got with Nike was literally through me showcasing my cooking series, right? So like every time we had that It's All Good dinner series, I was showing the chef, showing the food, like showing the results that we were creating. And the person that I knew from Nike from an event, right, had followed me, and they would always see my stuff and be like, oh, I love what you're doing. We're trying to do like some cooking events. You think you could help us out? So the first one didn't work out, but then the next one, they're like, hey, we have this event. And the thing with being an entrepreneur, you need to be ready at all times, right? So she reached out to me on Tuesday. The event was on Saturday, so I had to get everything ready from Tuesday and then have it ready to be executed on Saturday. And that was like a LeBron watch customized waffle thing where we worked with the chef and he created these different waffles based on the different shoes that LeBron was releasing that day. So
Wow.
that was a cool event.
Very cool.
But
very cool.
that's kind of like,
So you use social media and yourself and events to speak about it.
yeah. And I think even though social media is so big, like the doors that open for you just being out and about work so well, right? So like one of the reasons I was late is because one of my clients, we were filming a TV segment, right? And his publicist was trying to get on the Jam, and we hadn't heard a lot back from them. And this is like a real life example going on right now, right? So we hadn't heard back from him, but one of my newer clients had a birthday party, and I knew that she knew one of the producers at the Jam. So I told them, I said, hey, make sure you come to this birthday party. I'm sure the guy will be there. Once they got there, the guy was there. We talked to him, and now we're doing, instead of just doing one Valentine's Day segment that we did today, now we're filming another one on Thursday. So it literally worked in a few hours that we actually got to book that out.
And so actually to piggyback on that, social media alone won't get you the gigs.
Yeah.
You got to be able to do more, put yourself out there, put your step forward as well. Yes, ma'am.
That was my question. How do you market? But I have another one for your website. I went on it, and it's very modern. Did you design it yourself?
Yes, so I don't like doing that at all. But I just know, like, the one I had before was like cool, but I was like, all right, let's make this even better, right? So I looked at like a bunch of different people's websites, and I was like, what do I like about this? So what you can do, and this is not too hard, but Squarespace, have you used Squarespace before?
No, I use Wix.
So yeah, Squarespace is great because it literally has a template, right? And then once I see what I like, I can mess around and do it, but I think I finished that like in a weekend, but that was just because I locked myself in the house and got it done. But
Pretty solid.
thank you, I appreciate it. Still has some things we need to tweak, I will say that. So.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, sir, in the back.
So how do you continue to grow professionally? What do you do in terms of educating yourself regarding the marketplace, changing demographics, adaptive work? How do you go about, enhancing your own professional development from education?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is, I will say, like, YouTube is my textbook, right?
Ooh.
I really think you can find almost all the information you want on YouTube, right? There's a lot of people that do, and not even just TED Talks, but like, if you know someone who's like at that position that you want to get to, I research them, right? Like, I don't even have cable TV, but all I do is watch YouTube, right? I'll go home, I'm watching YouTube. Coming here on the Metro, I'm listening to a podcast about a creative director that I found interesting. Like, I constantly am taking in data and information on a daily basis, right? I'm always trying to be like, all right, let me study this. Like, I think 2 weekends ago, I was studying the downfall of Rockefeller Records and how that all worked out and really analyzing that situation because I want to tap into the music industry. So I really think it's YouTube, right? I think YouTube is great because you can learn a lot from like people's personal experiences, and then reading too. I would say I read a lot. Like, I know my weakness, and my weakness is like physically reading, and it takes a lot of time. And since I'm on the train or on the bus and all this stuff all the time, like, I know that just takes a lot. So I use Audible, and I'm constantly listening to different books. So, yeah.
And I would actually even piggyback on that. Those of you who are attending classes here, see you're at a college that has all these resources and you have them all at your disposal for free. Lynda.com is a resource that he might have to pay for, but you have access to it for free right now as a COD student. So just some little things that you could take advantage of in order to get the momentum going in your business or your career for that matter as well. So listen, we're getting ready to finish up. I'm so excited. This is always the last question that I ask every guest that we have. And the question is this: knowing then what you know now, if you could tell yourself sitting in a class or sitting here as a student, if you could tell your old self some enlightening things, what would you tell yourself and these students for that matter as well, where they are in their career and their life?
Yeah, I would definitely say push harder, right? Everybody says I go like 1,000 miles per hour, but like back then I was like hanging out, I wasn't really doing a lot, and like learning from like a lot of the different people that I study, and like Gary Vee is just like go, 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 you know what I mean? Yeah. So instead of like me like hanging out and not focusing so much on my entrepreneurship, I think I could have been like 2 years ahead of where I was now, right? If I would have, like when I was doing the parties, like that was just like fun, right? And I didn't really like know what I was doing at that time. So I would have said like take it serious from then. And then even like, I think one of the keys is utilizing your school, right? At DePaul, I got an economics degree, but I think it was a lazy economics degree because it was a Bachelor of Arts, not a Bachelor of Science, yeah. So I didn't take any of those like marketing classes, entrepreneurship classes, like none of that. So I wish I would have done that, and I think I could have known like a lot more information.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good stuff, good stuff. Hey, let's give him a hand here, Momodou.
Thank you.
And those of you watching behind YouTube world, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the CODEC Show.